Welcome to AzureTeach.net.
In this video, let us discuss about modal validation in Web API. I am going to explain about Fluent Validation, ValidationAttribute, IValidatableObject and Data Annotations, and also when to use what kind of validation. In this demo, I am going to use .NET 5, but this code will work in .NET Core as well.
Please subscribe to AzureTeach.net for more tutorials on .NET and Azure based on real-time scenarios. Here I am creating a new ASP.NET Core Web API project, clicking on Next, giving the name as Modal Validation Demo, clicking on Next, and I'm choosing .NET 5, clicking on Create. First, let us discuss about validation attribute. Here I am creating a folder models, and inside this I am creating a class person model. When I had worked for an insurance project, we had a use case where we had to capture the person's date of birth and also the person's father's date of birth. Here both of these fields depends on each other. That is, person's father's date of birth should be prior date to the person's date of birth. Because father have to born first, then only the child will born, right? So here I'm adding a folder validation attributes. Here I'm adding a class, add class. I'm naming this as date1 should less than date2 attribute. We have to inherit this class from validation attribute. Press Ctrl over here, you have to choose using system.componentModel.data annotations. First, I'll write the code and after that, I'll explain the code. This can be better understood when we are debugging the solution. I'm pressing F12. We're going to override this method. So here I'm writing override space and I'm choosing this method. Now we have to add a constructor. This attribute will be decorated on one date field and we are going to use reflection to read the value of other date field to do the comparison. If you don't know the reflection, please bear with me until I write the code. To read the value of other date field, we need to know the property name. So here I am declaring private string. Let me make it read only. Private read only string underscore date2 property name. So here I am giving date2 property name. I'm using date2 property name to initialize the global variable, which is underscore date2 property name. Underscore date2 property name is equal to date2 property name. And here we have to typecast this object to the date time. So here I am writing date time date1 value is equal to date time of value. Here I am going to use reflection to get the value of other date field. So here I am writing date time date2 value is equal to, we can get the object instance using validation context. So I'm writing validation context dot object instance dot get type. It will give us the type, and from this we are going to get the property, and we have to pass the property name. So here we have to pass the property name of second date field, and we already got it through the constructor and we have initialized it to the global variable. So here I'm writing underscore date2 property name, and after that here I'm writing get value. So to this again we have to pass the validation context dot object instance. So what's happening here is, first we are getting the type of the object and we are reading the property, and after that we are passing the instance, and from that instance we are getting the value. As this returns object, we have to typecast it to date time. So here I am writing date time. And after that, we have to do our comparison. So here we have to write our logic to compare the date values. So here I'm writing date 1 value less than date 2 value. Then the validation is successful. So here we are returning validation result dot success. Otherwise, we are going to return failure. So here I'm writing return new validation result of error message. This error message property is already defined inside the validation attribute. So we are going to use this. Now we are going to use the attribute inside the person model. So here I'm writing public date time, date of birth, get set, and I'm declaring one more property, public date time, father, date of birth, get set, and I'm decorating father's date of birth with the attribute that we have created. So here I'm copying this attribute and pressing Ctrl dot to add the required namespace, and I'm removing this attribute because this is not needed. Here we have to pass the other date field property name, that is date of birth. So here I am passing this, and also I am mentioning the error message as father's date of birth should be prior date than person's date of birth. Now we have to test this. So here I'm adding a controller API add. I'm naming this as person controller. Here I'm adding an action public iAction result post person model, and here we are simply returning OK. Here I do not want to add any entity framework related code because I want to make this demo simple. So if you want to add, you can add it over here, but that is out of scope. Here what we are doing is we are just trying to understand the modal validation using the validation attribute. Here we are not checking whether the modal is valid or not, because for ASP.NET Core the modal validation is enabled by default. If you want to suppress that, you can do that in the startup class, but for now I am just keeping that as it is. Here I am adding a route HTTP post, and I want to go with the action name that we have defined. So here I have written action. Now let us run this solution to test. So as it is .NET 5, it opened the Swagger UI. So here you can see the person controller related post person method. So I'm clicking on this and I'm choosing try it out. So here it has provided as the JSON, so we just have to edit it. So here I'm giving the person's date of birth as 2020-11-02, and I'm giving father's date of birth as 2011-02, and I'm executing this. So here we got the success response. Now let us change the father's date of birth and give the year as 2030, and let us see now. So here if you see, it is showing an error stating it's a bad request, and also it is showing the error message. Now let us understand how this is working by keeping a breakpoint. I'm going into Visual Studio and keeping a breakpoint over here, and here I'm clicking on the execute button. So here we got the date 1 value, which is 2nd November 2030, and we are using reflection by passing the property name, that is date of birth, and here we got the date 2 value as 2nd November 2020. So that means the father's date of birth is after person's date of birth, which is invalid. So here we are returning the validation result, and we are passing the error message as father's date of birth should be prior date than person's date of birth. When we have to use validation attribute. So if you are sure that you are going to get these kind of scenarios in future also, and you want to use this code in other models as well, then you can create validation attribute and you can reuse the code. Now let us discuss about IValidatableObject Interface. We can use IValidatableObject Interface over here to do some more validations. So I'm inheriting our person model from IValidatableObject Interface. Press Ctrl dot and choose the namespace. Press Ctrl dot again and implement the interface. So here both of these dates should be less than the current date time, because the date of birth cannot be a future date. So here I am writing if date of birth is greater than date time dot now, yield return new validation result, and here I'm passing an error message: person's date of birth cannot be a future date. Now again here we are writing further date of birth is greater than date time dot now, yield return new validation result. Father's date of birth cannot be a future date. Now run the solution. Let us test this person/post person action. So here I'm clicking on try it out, and here I'm giving the date of birth of the person as 2030 November 03, and here giving the father's date of birth as 2025 November 03. So here I'm clicking on execute button. So here we got the error: person's date of birth cannot be the future date and father's date of birth cannot be a future date. Now let us change father's date of birth and give the year as 2000. Click on execute. So here we got the error related to the person date of birth only. Now change the date of birth of the person to 2015 year. Execute it, and now we got success response. When to use IValidatableObject? If you want to use your validation on particular model only, then you can use IValidatableObject on that particular model. Now let us discuss about data annotations. So to discuss that, we have to add few more properties over here. So here I am declaring public string first name, public string last name, public string email, public decimal weight in lbs. Now I want to make first name last name as the required parameters. That means the client must have to pass the values for these things, then only the modal validation will be successful. So here we can use required data annotations. So I'm decorating it in first name and last name, and I want the first name and last name should have at least one character and at maximum of 50 characters. So we can use string length attribute for that. So here I'm giving the maximum length as 50 and minimum length as 1, and error message as first name can have 1 to 50 characters. I want to use the same validation on last name also, so I'm decorating it over here. Now I want first name and last name to have characters only. That means if the user enters numbers or any special characters, the validation should fail. So for that we can use regular expression, and to this we can pass an expression. So here defining it can accept capital A to Z and small a to Z, and here plus dollar. That means it should start with a character and should end with a character, and it can have any number of characters. But as we have defined the string length as 50 characters, so After combining these two validations, it will only allow up to 50 characters only. And define an error message over here. Error message is equal to first name can only have letters. Copy this and paste it over here for the last name also. Here also change the error message. For email address, we can add email address data annotation, and the weight should be minimum of 1 lb and maximum of 400 lbs. So for that we can define range attribute over here, and minimum is 1 lb and maximum is 400 lbs. Now run the solution. Click on this post method, try it out, and just execute with the predefined data. So here we got the error related to the validation attribute, and also the error related to the range, because the predefined value here for the weight is 0. So here I'm changing the weight to 1 and dates to future dates. I'm giving the year for date of birth as 2030 and father's date of birth year is 2025, and I'm removing @ over here. So here the IValidatable objects validation should fail, but let us execute and see what happens. So here if you see, only the email ID related error was executed and the IValidatable object related error is not shown. The reason being is IValidatable object related code will be executed only if other data annotations are successful. So here I'm adding @ over here, and for the first name I'm passing null, and for the last name also I'm passing null. Again click on execute. Now if you see, it is showing required field validation related errors. Now pass some invalid characters over here. I'm passing some special characters, numbers and characters. I'm clicking on execute. So here if you see, the regular expression related validation occurred and it is showing the error message related to that. Now let us give some proper first name Adam and last name as Robert. Now click on execute. So here now the error related to IValidatable object is executed. The reason being is we have passed the proper data for data annotations. Now let us pass string.empty for the first name. So I'm passing the first name as empty string. Click on execute. Now if you see, first name field is required. First name can have 1 to 50 characters. That's all about data annotation. Data annotations can be used pretty much anywhere because these are basic kind of validation. So you can use this on any model which needs validation. Now let us discuss about my favorite one, that is the Fluent Validation. For that we have to add a NuGet package. Go to NuGet packages and search for Fluent Validation. Install fluentvalidation.asp.NET Core. It's a famous package. Here you can see the downloads. There are 37.5 million downloads. So install this package. I accept, and the package is installed. Now here let us add one more model. So here I'm adding a class, naming it as Fluent Person Model. Now we are going to do the same validation that we have done on the person model over here, but we are going to use Fluent Validation. So let us add all the properties that we have added on the person model. So the beauty of Fluent Validation is it is not needed to add any attributes over here. We can separate the validation rules to a different file, and that will help us a lot in unit testing that. So we have to add one more folder over here. So here I'm adding new folder validator, and inside validator folder I'm adding a new class and I'm naming it as Fluent Person Model Validator. Now we have to inherit this class from abstract validator. Press Ctrl dot and choose using Fluent Validation, and to this we have to mention the model on which we are writing these validations. So that is Fluent Person Model. Press Ctrl dot and add the namespace, and here inside the constructor
we have to write the validation rules. So writing these validation rules is so simple, like we are going to write general English but syntactically. So here I'm writing rule for, and after that x dot first name, it should not be null, it should not be empty, and if this condition fails, we are going to show an error message. So with error message, first name cannot be null or empty, or even we can write first name is required. So I'm copying this and pasting it over here. This is for the last name. Change the error message. Now let us write the string length error. So here I'm copying the first name, and here I am saying minimum length, that is 1, and maximum length, that is 50. If you want to add an error message over here you can add it using the with message, but I want to show you the default error messages that this package will show. So I'm keeping as is. Now I'm copying this again. If you want, you can chain all this over here, like after writing the min length, here you can write matches, that is for the regular expression. But just to separate all these things, here I'm writing them in individual lines. So here I'm writing rule for x dot first name, and we have to match it for a regular expression. So I'm going into the person model and I'm copying this regular expression. And here I'm writing with message first name can have characters only. Now I'm copying these two rules and pasting it over here for the last name. So I'm just changing the lambda expression over here, last name, and also the error message. Now let us write the validation for the weight. Weight should be between 1 and 400 lbs. So rule for, so instead of taking a property here, we are taking the entire object. So I'm writing person, this is just a lambda. So after that, here I'm writing must. So if you see, this is general English only. So here I'm writing x dot weight in lbs should be greater than or equal to 1, ampersand x dot weight in lbs should be less than or equal to 400 with message, and here I'm writing the message as weight must be between 1 to 400. Now let us write rules for the date of birth. So the date of birth cannot be a future date. So here I'm writing lambda x dot date of birth dot less than date time dot now, and if it is greater than date time dot now, then we are showing an error message, date of birth cannot be a future date. Copy it and paste it for the father's date of birth and change this property, father's date of birth, and here also change the error message. Now let us write the rule that we have implemented using validation attribute. So here I am using person, and after that I am writing must x dot father's date of birth less than x dot date of birth, and here with message father's date of birth must be a prior date than date of birth. You can write this rule in this fashion also. Now let us write rule for email address, x dot email address dot email address. Now we have to register this validator inside our services. So I'm copying this. I'm going over here, going to the startup class, and under configure services, here I'm writing services dot add transient, and here I'm writing IValidator, press control dot, and to this we are passing Fluent person model. Here we have to mention the person model, and here we are associating with Fluent person model validator. Press control dot again and add the namespace. Also we have to enable the Fluent validation. So after add controllers, here I'm writing add Fluent validation. So press Ctrl dot on this method and add this namespace. Now let us add one more action in person controller to test our logic. So here I'm copying this and pasting it over here. And I'm changing the name as post fluent person, and I'm changing the model as fluent person model. Now let us run the solution. Now let us test it. Click on this post button, try it out. And I'm clicking on execute over here. So we got bad request error. Weight must be between 1 to 400 because the default value is 0 over here. And father's date of birth must be prior date than date of birth. So here both are same, so that's the reason it gave that error. And email address is not a valid email address. So here I'm changing it as user@gmail.com and changing the date of births to 2030 year and clicking on execute again. And now if you see, we got the error related to the father's date of birth, and also father's date of birth cannot be a future date, date of birth cannot be a future date. Now let us pass this as empty and execute it. And if you see here, we got 3 errors related to the first name because we have one regular expression also. So here first name cannot be null or empty, and this is related to the regular expression. Sorry, this is related to the string length, and this is related to the regular expression. And here give the proper weight. So here I'm giving the weight as 6 lbs and giving some special characters over here. Now let us click on the execute button, and here if you see, we got the error related to the regular expression. Before we wrap it up, I want to show you a few more things of the solution. And here I'm adding few more properties: public bool, has mobile, get set, public string mobile number. I want the mobile number to be passed only if has mobile equal to true, and also it should be a 10-digit number. So I'm going into the person validator, and here I'm writing when lambda x dot has mobile, and we can pass an action over here. And inside this, I'm adding rule for x dot mobile number. It shouldn't be null or empty. And matches, we have to pass a regular expression. So $d $10. So this will ensure that only this property will allow 10-digit number. And here I'm writing with message 10-digit mobile number must be passed when has mobile is equal to true. Now I want to show you one more thing. Here I'm going into the startup.cs class. So here we have added the required dependency, but assume your project has 100 models, so you have to add 100 dependency bindings over here. That doesn't look good and easy, so we have another option. So I'm removing this, and here inside add fluent validation we can write lambda x dot register validators from assembly containing. So what will happen is it will look for the assembly which contains the startup.cs class, and it will register all the bindings for us. So I'm saving it, I'm running the solution. Now go to the post and try it out. If you see here, by default has mobile is true. So I'm clicking on execute. So here we got the error related to the mobile number because here we did not pass 10-digit mobile number. So I am passing a 10-digit mobile number over here, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, and now I'm clicking on execute. Now that error is gone. And if I make this as false and remove the mobile number, so now also it should not show the error message. Click on execute. See, now also it is not showing the error message. That's all in this demo. If you like this demo, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.